Allianz. Supporting all 32 counties through the Allianz Leagues.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on,
Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Morning, folks. Hope you're all well out there in podcast land, wherever you're listening. Delighted that you can join us again today for our hurling show here in the Irish Examiner, and very grateful to Allianz for looking after us there and driving us on and having us here. A lot of water under the bridge in the hurling world since we were last with you, lads. We hadn't the show last week. The footballers were ramping up the gears with Paul Galvin there, so we had to ramp it back up. Two boys are here, so we've Ken Hogan. Ken, we've it ramped up for you.
That's the shot. It's getting close now. Early June.
Tip going well, Ken.
Beginning to get going. A good win on Saturday. An important win, really, because Galway have had the Indians signing us for quite a while. So, from that perspective, I think Liam needed a win, and we got it.
Yeah. A lot, as I said, has gone under the bridge. We've had talk of simulation. We've had apologies. We've had climb downs. We've had COVID cases. We've had all sorts of things. We're not really giving out about the referees too much today. I'd say we were on last Monday. Should have been all about rules and everything. But a lot has happened, I suppose. And sure, look, that's the nature of it. I suppose it just start, Ken, I'd say I just have to mention Bonner and on behalf of us all here in the pod, just to wish him the absolute best and to hope. I know he's a surgery a couple of days' time, and the hope that he gets into that Lara jersey later on in the year for you. What a soldier, like. I think if it was anyone else, we'd be probably saying that's the end of it. But with Bonner, we're probably not.
It's absolutely cruel. Like, you're grasping at straws to try and find some sort of consolation for him, because he puts in such a huge effort. And would you believe it, lads, in all the fitness tests that the lads have been doing individually and then collectively when they came back, the youngsters still couldn't beat him in any of the tests. A guy, the most complimentary thing we could say about Bonner, a shrewd man in my parish from Lurris, once said Bonner's a freak. And up to now, these injuries had never occurred. The cruciate against Limerick, in an actual fact, TJ, that was a game that Tipp didn't even have to win that particular day. So disappointing to lose out in the 2019 All-Ireland. And then for this to happen, Achilles tendon, and it's a suspected rupture, as you probably know. That's a very serious injury, and it's only Bonner will get back from that. He's the one guy who will recover from that. And 2022 is a big year in our history, both in Tipperary and in our country. And I just hope that there's some incentive there, and if anyone can find an incentive, Patrick Bonner Maher will find an incentive. In actual fact, it was over club training on Friday night, and would you believe his brother Willie, who played under 21 with me, was back training. He was out injured last year, and we got to the Arena Cup final. He was back training. He's back training this year with the club, and it was a huge boost to everybody. And now we're losing Bonner on the other side. So it's amazing the way things can happen. But we wish him all the very best on Wednesday morning. If there's one guy that will recover from this, it is himself, because he's just an unbelievable competitor. Wants to win all the time, and in actual fact, age has no barrier with Bonner, because his fitness stats are off the board, plus the fact he's a teetotaler. He has no interest in anything else on his sport, and it's one thing that will drive him back on, with the support of obviously the parishioners and also his clubmen and countymen.
Well said, Ken. Yeah, I mean, I was liking the way he was going as well, and Liam was using him, sort of, giving him the few minutes each time, and start him obviously the first day and then bringing him on. And you were saying this is a real championship project, so tough luck to Patrick. And but as you see, couldn't add to anything you've said, Ken. So we wish Bonner the very best here from us all. Mark, you're flying it?
Yeah, happy enough, I'd say. Anthony,
No, I don't mean cock. I don't mean cock, Mark. I mean you had the vaccination yesterday, like you were looking up there.
I can tell you.
He's a bit pale looking, all right.
Sore arm yesterday. I got the Pfizer jab yesterday. I think you and me qualified for it during the week. Like you got a Friday, I think, but you're over it. You probably had a couple of snaky pints again out the back over the weekend.
Well, I had a couple of glasses of red wine just to make sure. I was off Marty duty, so just to make sure the vaccine. Did you get the Johnson & Johnson one?
No, I got a Pfizer one. And
I got the old Cyril Farrell one. One shot, bang, bang.
Yeah. No need to come back. No, I got to go to the ticket. The two girls that were dealing with me, they said, Jesus, take off your shirt there. Well, I said, Jesus, I didn't get an offer like that in 20 years.
and not likely to get another one. Like
quite unlikely. But she gave me a ticket anyway afterwards, and she said, "You hang on to that now." She says that's the golden ticket to come back for the second jab. So I said, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory all over again.
I tell you, like obviously, Clare's is on in the West County Hotel, you know, and like back in our heyday, like it was the Queen's Hotel for the nightclub on Friday night, and the West County on a Saturday night. You know, that was the nightclub, and made one or two I knew on the queue on the way in. Obviously, Ennis being a lot smaller than Cork City, like, but. Aside anyway, I got my jab done. Lovely girl. I think she was from Galway. Did the thing in Johnson & Johnson. That's good luck. See you no more now until whatever happens next year. So
good stuff.
You have to go out in and wait for the 15 minutes crack, right?
The 15 minutes, that was. I thought it was an exam, to be honest with it.
Yeah, there was Mike Daffy, who I hurled with Clare, right? Same age as myself, we were same year minor. And Paddy O'Connell, who was in my class in Flannan's, like, and I says, "There's the last time we were here in this room, there was a nightclub going on, like, the whole room erupted laughing." Stop, you meet all faces. You know that everyone's around your own age. It's some experience, I know, I tell you that. But glad to have it done. TJ, you must be due, you?
No.
What?
Ah, Jesus.
I'm a lot younger than you guys. No, I registered, so I'm waiting for the call right now.
Okay.
But good weekend for the over 50s, Dalo.
Oh yeah, flaky last night. What a man.
Unbelievable.
And I didn't think it was a massive shock, I have to say. I thought there was one man that was going to do it. It was him, and we all remember, like, Tom Watson, how close he came at 59. Desperately unlucky. So I just thought Mickelson was in great shape. Obviously, we're hearing all about the work he's doing with meditation and the whole breathing thing. And I thought he had shown flashes. He hadn't put it together for 4 rounds, but he had shown lots of flashes in the last year that the game was still there. Jesus, it was some week's performance, wasn't it?
Incredible performance. I was saying, I was WhatsApping you guys last night. I had the scenes with the fans and no mask in sight and everything. It was kind of a real hope for the future and for championship maybe in 2 months' time and stuff like. And you know, there may be people questioning, will people go back to hurling matches? Well, if the golf was anything to go by last night, I'd say people will be just mad for all when it comes down. I'd say that just you won't be able to keep people away. It was incredible scenes. What surprised me most, Dalo, was the fact that he just outdrove Bryson on the 16th. 366 yards. I know wind assisted, but I didn't think that was in the bag.
I believe he would have that in the bag, teacher, but you see, his drives were going so wayward. He wasn't really taking it out, but I'd say the confidence was so high yesterday. He's just saying, so, yeah. He's been still striking at a mile, like, but it's been going all over the place.
Yeah, he's some yoke of a wedge, isn't he?
Oh my God!
It's unbelievable. But like after dropping a shot in the first, and Brooks kept getting birdie the first for some swing around, and then he didn't have a great. He dropped another shot that he said in the second, but the chip out of the bunker on the third straight into the hole, that settled the nerves, and the crowd really got behind him as well. Like I'd say. That actually upset, I think, Brooks Koepka slightly, that the whole crowd were behind him.
What upset Brooks was you backed him. Like, you'd stop trains at the moment.
you'd knock Arkle, Landers.
He must know. He must
know. Fella, I can tell you.
Looked like
it. Well, when I saw him missing from 12 inches, I said to myself, "Oh, it's time to turn it off now and turn on the Sunday game and watch the football."
I know, football first, yeah. But I didn't want to tell you because I knew. Sorry, Ken.
With sports science now, and as you mentioned, the meditation and the psychology of sport, lads, age is only a number, you know, and you saw that even with Conal Keaney there, you know, 38, 39 years of age, very reluctant to retire, actually. He was really reluctant to go. the guys, people. We were saying it was only a young man's game a few years ago, that guys will be gone by 30 years of age. Now the reverse is happening again. That guys are coming back into the mix and into the play. And you see the Dublin footballers, Philly McMahon and co. I mean, obviously he owns a gym, but they're in extraordinary shape and they're smart. They're trained smart, and there's so much science there involved nowadays that the players, and it's a great thing to see in actual fact, the players can play on well into their 30s because a lot of players, and particularly in the J world, as you remember, lads, players were written off because once they reached the big 3-0, Jesus, he's gone over the hill. Bad game. We had bad games in our 20s as well, but it's just that he's gone over the hill. He's 30, sure, he's 31. You know what I mean? And I think it's a great opportunity now that Phil Mickelson has shown that, and right throughout sport, you see it in all professional sports, but particularly in our amateur sport, there's no reason why players will stay going. And Cluxton, of course, is a huge example of that as well in Dublin.
But even on the management side of it, Ken, there was a massive victory over the weekend for Jim Balger, who's 79 years of age, who trained a 2,000 guineas winner. And TJ and myself would know him pretty well because we were initially on the initial match. Remember the Davy Russell and Jim Balger for cancer in Newbridge. Jesus, TJ, we're going back a few years there now, but Jim Balger was on one side and Davy Russell was on the other side. But I thought was in the era where you have the likes of the Aidan O'Briens and the Joseph O'Briens, that Jim Balger, and he bred the winner himself and had first and second at 2,000 guineas over the weekend. And funny enough, the horse is named after the horse's name is Mac Sweeney, and he was named after Terence Mac Sweeney. You wrote about that Dalo last year, and he spoke on Nick Luck on Sunday yesterday about what it meant to naming the horse that after the Lord Mayor of Cork in over 101 years ago, who went on hunger strike. He was usually involved in trying to get independence for Ireland at the time, and was taken and was imprisoned by the British soldiers, and he died in Brixton Hospital 101 years ago. But as he said himself, it took me a long time to get a horse, and I needed to know, I suppose, that I had one to deliver, and he delivered it in the 2,000 guineas over the weekend. But we've always made this point about the racing and about the hurling and the GA and how intertwined it is. Like remember TJ, when we went down to Newbridge playing that match, you brought the Limerick jerseys, and I think it was the minor jerseys you brought in because certainly there was a problem getting them down over a few fellas anyway. But Ronnie Delaney was there, Sean O'Brien was there, Brian Cody was there, just three fellas off the top of my head there. I don't know, TJ, can you remember a few of the other celebrities? Sonia Sullivan was there another year. But it was a magnificent situation to have the likes of Russell and who's been on the podcast before, and Jim Balger to get fellas together. Charlie Swan, another fella that was there.
Niall Quinn was there as well, because I was marking him for a smile away. He's huge. But yeah, incredible achievement by Jim. I think he bred the sire as well, and the mother. So yeah, so there's hope for you, yes, Mackie, if you can follow down what Jim Bulger's doing, or a quarter of it. You will be fine. But
for first prize wasn't too bad, was it?
Incredible achievement. And just for the listeners, is that the winner, Max Sweeney, is most likely going to head on to the Derby in Epsom there, I think, on Saturday week. Will be a bit of a price, and I'd say would be worth, because it looks like there's been plenty staying in the pedigree. So anyway, that's probably enough about horses for today, Dalo.
Yeah. Just quickly, how's the Queen, Mark?
The Queen tore a hamstring over the weekend, Dalo. She's going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, first time she's been injured now. So I went up to see her yesterday morning and just to check in on her, and gave her a bit of a rub on the back of the leg there, and she didn't like it. So she has to be stood in for 10 days, and then she'll be doing a bit of easy work after that. But anyway, it's a blessing in disguise because the weather has been so poor. She'd need good ground. I don't know if the supporters back for Galway, Dalo, would be making out the jump to the west.
Back for Ballybrit. Oh, yeah. I don't think there'll be anyone allowed in the track, but there'll be a good crowd in the town, Mark.
Yes, so surely they'll let the owners back. Like, we're the only sport in the moment in Ireland that the owners aren't allowed go. Like, I mean, in the UK, they opened up since the 17th of May. So I'd be very hopeful that the Irish government will start to realise that the poor old fellas paying footing the bills will have to get some opportunity to go to a race meeting this year.
Yeah, well, when you hear that TJ Ryan is about to be vaccinated, possibly this week, they are getting down the years. Like, there's no doubt about that.
Absolutely, the young fellas are coming. Ken, I was going to go back to you there about sports science, which said, like, I wonder how much of a factor is it going to be heading into the next maybe 3 or 4 weeks with a lot of resting of players, I'd say, before the championship. How are managers going to get to training, game time, injury-free? We saw a little bit of it with Galway, Joe and Dahi Burke being taken off. I saw it in the footballers 3 or 4, like Robbie O'Flynn has done his hamstring. And even for clubs back training, like I imagine, because the fellas will maybe have done a lot of running themselves or maybe distance stuff and maybe some weights, and now they're back into maybe quick stuff and sprinting, it's definitely going to be a concern heading into the next 3 or 4 weeks, isn't it?
Without a doubt, because, if you pull a hamstring, at this moment in time, you're talking about at least 4 weeks, particularly at the pace these players are going, the power of them and the power of their muscles. So from that point of view, you take the situation with the footballers. A lot of footballers went down over the weekend with hamstring issues. Now, obviously, it's a different game to football, to hurling, in the fact that obviously they're using their legs to distribute the ball and things like that, and there are obviously a lot of tackling involved. With the hurling situation, as you can see, there will be probably a downturn now after the third round because of the fact of important games coming up, situations where there'll be handbags at 10 paces. But I think that's down. That's these strength and condition trainers are definitely employed to tackle that. The management will delegate, obviously, but it's their responsibility. Ultimately, you're looking at your strength and condition trainer, you're looking at your medical people, the physios particularly, to say, well, what more can we do? And there's tests every night, as you know, lads. Every night to go in, there's the springboard tests, there's every type of test for the lads when they go in to see, are they fatigued, are they tired? Like Joe Canning, in actual fact, was cruising through the match. He played very well, Joe, at midfield. And the next thing, he was gone. He went at the water break. We're looking at, where's Joe gone? And he was actually rested, as you mentioned. Dahi Burke, the Galway guys beside me, he hadn't played a league game, I imagine, since 2018 was his last league game to play with Galway. And I think he has 5 All-Stars at this stage. So Dahi definitely looks stale. He needed that match, and I'm sure he'll be thrown into the fray again for another match or two, because that ultimately probably head against Dahi in the Leinster final in particular last year. His lack of match practice, I think, told against him a little bit.
And he was a little bit rusty even at the weekend, I thought, it's sure you can't. You need games, that's the bottom line. But just on that division, lads, do you think, some I'm no disrespect to them at all now, I'm so sorry for the way they were beaten again yesterday with Westmeath, who had come off a good game in Waterford from their point of view. But do you think teams in that group are looking at that Westmeath game like that? Cork had them yesterday, so Cork knew the break is coming next weekend. They had Westmeath, with due respect, they were probably going to beat them. We didn't see them scoring 27 or whatever, but that they kind of maybe used that as a chance for a training block, Mark. Do you know that they said, right, we've all this week, we should have the Westmeath, okay, we'll win that, and we've all the following week and a break and get ready then for our next match, Yeah,
I think Cian Kingston used it to blood a couple of the younger lads in particular. I looked at the Waterford Westmeath game. Waterford rested 12 of their starting 15, kind of your normal. Cork only rested 8 over the weekend, or 7. They had a formidable backline out yesterday. I felt 4 of the 6 backs were out. Dara Fitzgibbon in the middle of the field, and even the fact that Hoggy played. Now I know he's captain, and he probably wants to play as well, which is a great sign of the player. But you had Hoggy and you had Luke Bead and you had Alan Cadigan. I suppose the 3 of them. They probably will be in the fouling, but we're after unearthing a couple of young fellas, particularly Alan Connolly and Shane Barrett. And I think it was an ideal opportunity to give them a match whereby they may get a bit of confidence from the match. They wouldn't be looking over to the sideline to see what they're going to be taken off. They're going to miss a couple of games or miss a couple of balls. So I thought it was a great position for Cian Kingston to be able to use that game. But I also think that the game has come just as part of the calendar, Anthony. The serious question for Cork is that Robbie Flynn, Shane Kingston and Seamus Hannity are all out with hamstring injuries. So in terms of the block of training, I think they're more inclined to be saying we need to be able to get our best players back in the field. And the biggest issue they'll have going into the Limerick match in a fortnight's time will be who's going to be fit and who's not going to be fit. And it is a serious question. I suppose there's 2 more league matches to come up. And you only have three weeks really to the first round of the championship, and that's going to be a concern for any management team, whether it is strength and conditioning or backroom or players. That 3 weeks, if a fella gets injured, he's going to be in trouble. So, but then look, lads, I don't think you can spare fellas either at the same time, because injury is a part of the game. You look at Bonamar there now in particular, and we're all sad to see that his season is over. But like, his fitness levels were gone through the roof, and here we are with an injury that is going to stop his season. So you can't protect fellas either at the same time. You can just manage it. And I suppose in particular, when you look at the Joe Canning situation, I think he's been managed, and he's had 3 or 4 very, very bad injuries in the last 4 or 5 years as well. So I think minding fellas, I would have no problem throwing the young fellas in, none whatsoever, because they'll recover faster. But the likes of Shamie Hannity, I don't know how much more are we going to see in terms of game time. Will we see a half an hour, maybe in both matches to come in the last 2 league matches? But I'd be protecting him as much as I could. But Shane Kingston, I believe he needs to be in there and playing as many games as possible. So I think what you do depends on the player involved and how serious the injury is.
It's an unusual one, Dalo. I do see the question you're asking there. I think certain teams will look at certain games where they will look to train through, because in a club scenario, anybody has been involved. Like, normally, if you would have, let's say, 5 games in 6 weeks, your training load would be really, really small. So the opportunity here for guys to get a lot of work into fellas is a very, very small window. So they would have to look at 1 or 2 games and say, right, we'll train through that. But the balance between game time and resting fellas and getting that block of work in, because the championship is coming very quick here, right? And it's going to be 100 miles an hour with the pace that we're expecting, the ground, it's summer hurling. So it's definitely a challenge for them, Dalo. The S&C guys will be on overload, I would say, for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, and I was only thinking about it there last night, after watching the Clare game back. Shane O'Donnell and David Reedy had to pull out kind of last minute with twinges before the Wexford game. And there were huge losses. Probably you'd feel if they were there, Clare might have closed out the deal. But then the right call was made. They were there in their clothes in Cusack Park, and like, O'Donnell was brilliant yesterday. Then, like, got an unreal goal and set up the very good goal as well for Mac Rogers. So I think the right calls by the right guys is the crucial thing. And whereas you look at maybe some other team, like I'd say, Ken, in all fairness, the likes of Bubbles, as much game time as you could get into him now, and really look sharp on Saturday.
Yeah, like I for one would have written off Bubbles. I felt he was totally out of shape last year. He was carrying a chronic hamstring problem. He played against those in the club. He didn't look like he'd ever play again, and he has come back. He's looking great. He's playing well. He's strong in the air. He's contesting the ball in the air. From a Tipp point of view, and I suppose from every county's point of view, and this is the thing about Waterford lads yesterday. Waterford, like, we're all talking about this 20-player thing. Oh, you need 20 players now. But Waterford have 25 at least that can play at that level. They have huge energy levels. I think they're going to be very dangerous from the point of view of the amount of energy they bring to the game. Patrick Curran came in yesterday, absolutely outstanding. We haven't seen much of Patrick Curran. He was a brilliant minor in 21. We haven't seen a lot of him, but he produced 3 great points yesterday. And I think from every team's perspective, the player that had the bit of confidence, you've got to keep pushing him and making sure that he feels that he has a huge amount to contribute to the game. Then there's other guys trying to get in there and get in and play. And like the Cork situation, like unearthing Mark is one thing, but those Cork players are class players. Even though they lost 21 All-Irelands to Tipp, and months under 20s, all I have seen those lads, up along, doing up along. They're top class players, and it's just to give them that opportunity to get in there, get their nose in there. And now they've got it in there. There's going to be savage competition for places. So I think all managers, even last weekend gone, have said, right, time to pull him out, take him out after 45 minutes. And it mightn't be even the manager saying that, lads. It could have been one of the lads, the conditioning trainer, said, come down and say, Joe looks a bit tired, he's getting leggy, get him out of there. And I'd say that's the advice they're taking from behind him.
But they're set, just to stay with Tipp for a second, there's a settled look coming a bit. Now, Brian had to cry off before the game yesterday on Saturday, did he?
Yeah, concussion, like the same thing. Yeah, and the same. But
there'll be a Hogan in goal, right? It looks now like it looks like the 2 corners are nearly settled. Carl Barrett and Heffernan playing brilliant hurling. Like Paddy at full, I suppose they're still having a look, but Paddy will be there. Then Ronan and Shamie Kennedy seems to have shored up 6 now in the role that they're playing him in. I've seen a good bit of Tipp now twice live and I'm watching on the TV side. So that's big for Liam Sheedy, isn't it? That the backs are, I know Brian O'Mara's out injured. He could come back into play big time because he had started very well.
Well, the big bonus now, lads, because I had him, obviously, I don't know if you want him, Paddy. The big bonus for me is Paddy playing full back. You had JJ Delaney going back to full back and being an anchor man for Kilkenny for a number of years. But he was a special talent. But Paddy, the key thing about Paddy is, people are saying, can he play full back? But Paddy is actually a full back. He's a natural full back because of his displays with his own club in Thurles. And obviously when he went out with the county at wing back, he had a tremendous career. But in actual fact, Paddy, was an all-star 20 years of age at full back. It'll shore up a bit. We had a huge problem at full back, lads, because Ronan was playing full back, 23, 24 years of age, an outstanding hurler at half back, had to come back in and play full back to fill a gap. Now his brother, Paddy's probably seen the light here and saying, this is where I'm going to make it now. I've got to get a stranglehold of a position on the team, and full back could be it. So that could be the big bonus. And you have Brendan Maher and Brian McGrath. We can't forget Brian McGrath, who has played very well as well. So the backs were a huge problem last year. We were leaking. But this year, there seems to be a very solid look about them, all right.
Yeah, and amazing when you give 3 big games like that and lads stake a claim or it looks settled, how our mentality changes straight away, Mark. We look at it and say, Jesus, hang on now.
Yeah.
Barrett, Paddy and Barry Heffernan. That's as good a full back line in the country nearly. And
all serious hurlers and good, strong physical men as well. Like they're exactly what you'd need in a full back line. But I think Ronan Maher, I think will improve a fair bit as well for going out to the wing back. So the big, Noel McGrath, I suppose we discussed this last year that Noel McGrath looked tired in the championship. That was because of the run he had in the club championship and stuff like that. So you'd excuse him. But he looked extremely thin and I suppose fit is what I would say. And that, I suppose, goes along when you're talking about bubbles and you're also talking about Paddy Maher as well. I think the 3 of them players in particular have slimmed down an awful lot from last year. Interesting enough, putting Noel McGrath back in centre forward has been an extra lease of life, I think, to him. And it's amazing that we give things a bit of a change up and stuff like that fellas do get a new lease of life. And he was very good at heart again on Saturday. But the one question for me, it was nice in Saudi, Mark, just before you leave that one. It was nice competitive battle with Pádraig Mannion himself, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Now, 2 fellas that would have had a high respect for each other. Oh, there was, yeah. Absolutely. But the biggest question for me, Ken, is that how come Michael Breen hasn't nailed down the starting slot in the middle of the field?
Yeah, the big question also is we had huge problems in the air, and like the Bonner was the one man that was good in the air. We had huge problems in the air. Now Mikey Breen came in, as you know, last weekend and caught 2 unbelievable balls and slapped them over the bar, which is Mikey's forte. That's Mikey's type of play, Mark. I suppose that's the big question in Tipp. He hasn't nailed down a place. He has been obviously midfielder in 2 All-Ireland wins, by the way. He's still very young, relatively young, mid-20s, 25, 26, so superbly fit, great attitude. But it's his style of play. Like, he won an All-Ireland minor as a full-back. He didn't play at midfield. He played at centre forward. He played at wing forward. I still think he will have a place in the team, Mark. Position, he's going to be wing forward now, like.
But you know what? It kind of reminds me a little bit like Ken at the moment, where you get this tag of being a super sub. Like, any day he has come in for Tipperary, he's made a huge impression, and you're all saying he has to start the next day. And some fellas get that tag, Ken, as well. Like, I mean, Dan McCormick is going to be playing, John McGrath is going to be playing, Bubbles is going to be playing, Noel McGrath is going to be playing. There's 4 of your forwards. Like, Jason Ford. Callan, 5. What's that? Jason Ford.
Oh, sorry, John McGrath.
6. So he's not going to be in the forward line, I'd say.
Yeah, but that half forward line is the fulcrum of everything, because whether you like it or not, even in the modern game, and you saw the physicality of Waterford and Limerick yesterday, even in the modern game, you need a half forward line that are open at him. Niall O'Mara, that are open at him with a bit of pace and a bit of drive and a bit of gusto to go at defences. So even though to have forwards that will finish the game and get the scores, and you mentioned Noel at centre forward, because his vision is unbelievable, but you need grafters in there. You need grafters in there as well. But that midfield is still wide open, Mark. And like like Tipp have a little bit of soul searching to do. We mentioned 20, 21, 22 players. They have the 22 players. What formation are, that's the big question. What and like you have Clare and Waterford with the game under their belts coming into it as well.
Yeah, very impressed with Paddy Cadell.
Paddy Cadell, I would expect Paddy Cadell, if he'll go for a hurling midfielder, he'll put Paddy Cadell in there, I would say. And I think Michael Breen will complement them.
Alan Flynn has done very well as well, though, in the 3 matches.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I think he was a cornerback last year, wouldn't he?
Play midfield as well. Brendan can still play as a midfielder. Like
Brendan, when you mentioned that,
midfielder. So it's to get that type of consistency into their play, and that win was hugely important from that point of view. Now, as you mentioned there will be an easing back. The Westmeath game, there will be a chance to give guys obviously opportunities. And that's an important game from everybody's point of view as well. But I just think overall the strength of the Limericks, the Waterfords, the Tipps, particularly the Corks coming into play, and Dalo, you mentioned Clare and the frustrations that Brian Lohan had yesterday with the whole situation over the week. But the one team that can turn over Waterford, in my opinion, could be Clare in that quarter final.
Yeah, with a full hand to play, I wouldn't rule that out, Ken. Yeah, but I was very impressed with Waterford now, I have to say. But Shane O'Neill wouldn't be too worried, TJ. He had a big win in Salthill the previous week, kind of a statement win, if you like, against Limerick, that he needed to probably do going on Galway's results against Limerick. So he wouldn't be too... He made a good raft of changes as well for Thurles. So and there wasn't much in it, bar the 2 goals, really. A lot of wides in the game, but I thought it was the best league game so far, I have to say.
Yeah, and like you can clearly see Galway, what Ken was saying there, is a very strong panel. And I think, like, for maybe the pack, I think the pack is definitely closing. That's probably one of the things we might have changed our mind on, between the start of this league and where we are now, right? Like, you can clearly see the other teams are trying to build their 21, 22. I'd say John Kiley has a fair idea. I don't think anything significant has changed in terms of his first 15. I don't think that any of us be too surprised with the team. Like, Tipp getting that balance right up front, Ken's right with the options that they have. It's just getting that balance in the 6 right. Cork will be the same, Mark. There are new players there. Again, getting that 6, that's a challenge for them. Galway and Limerick are probably a little bit different. I'd say you probably could have a fair stab at the Galway team now, Dalo, I'd say, that'll play a championship. But definitely, I think for Galway and Waterford to get a win over Limerick, given the results over the last year or two, I think is a big fill-up for their camp. And it's amazing in sport, isn't it? Where Limerick hadn't been beaten in so long, and then there's 2 defeats coming in a row. Like, so it's just, and all of a sudden, I suppose we're all aware, like in dressing rooms, that when a team gets beaten, like, it definitely changes the psychology. No matter how tuned in or tuned out you are, like, your psychology changes when a team is beaten. You think they're there for the take. And so, yeah, from Limerick's point of view, I don't think the performance was brutal yesterday. I think that the sending off had a big effect in the game. I think that if Shane Fanning hadn't been sent off, would Limerick have won? They may have. The wind was huge, as we well know. The one concerning thing for me with Limerick over the 3 games would be the number of points they're scoring from play, Dalo, as opposed to their previous form. That's definitely a little bit of a concern. We haven't had a full forward line out, and Gerard Hegarty and Tom Morrissey haven't been on the same team. And I suppose you're kind of hoping that will come right. But just the fluidity, and maybe the opposition probably need credit, and they've killed a lot of space, and they've set up that a little bit different. So they seem to be able to know how to beat Limerick, and Limerick aren't scoring goals either, which we're obviously familiar with. So they're the challenges are there for Limerick.
But on that, Teach, we talk about Waterford as well, because I think, look, that was real show of strength yesterday. I think Ken is right on that. But Limerick, like, is there a bit of a target on their back in some ways? And is there? Would you be any bit worried? Let's say there'd be a bit of talk going around about. There was a lot of talk up to this weekend about they were conceding an awful lot of frees. Then 2 Limerick men didn't finish the match yesterday. Like, is there? Like, I can nearly relate to some of this in my own head. Like, back to '98 when we won we won the second one in '97, and we were probably raging favourites maybe going in '98, and so much stuff went on in '98 that John Kiley really needs to manage it now. No better man. Like, I even said that to you on the page like last night. I think John will come up with the goods and will manage this, and will settle everything. And but just a few lads struggling for a bit of form at the moment. Maybe Keane, maybe Tom Morrissey will be the one I would say is maybe struggling to find his rhythm a little bit now. I would have no doubt come to Cork game in the championship. These guys with that maybe half forward line, but maybe who's to say Kyle Hayes might land up again in the half forward line. I'm saying it all year, and I still wouldn't be surprised with the likes of Barry Nash being a huge, obviously, option. Richie English has played all the games. Do you know, like Limerick have so many options back there. Would they go back to a Kyle at 11 and what a half forward line you'd have then? But would you be any bit worried, like with the side shows and the little bit of needle that's in nearly every game they're involved in? But that's because you are the standard bearer now.
Yeah, I take your point, and I think that there'd be some degree of concern in terms of, as such, the lack of scores from play, number one, and the way the opposition teams are setting up. I suppose, and even looking forward to the next game, right? Are we looking at a very much a shadow game between Limerick and Cork? What kind of a team are Cork going to put out? What kind of a lead? Yeah. Limerick certainly won't want to lose 3 in a row, but then the bigger prize is coming in 4 weeks later. There'll be a little bit of a concern. Teams are getting to know them. There is a target on their back for sure. And I suppose like Keane seems to be very much the man that's kind of getting the man marking. And I suppose teams are aware that kind of like he's very much the real link in that middle third, that when he's basically on his game and when he's on the ball and making passes, he does seem to be able to make a difference for teams. So I will go along with you, Dalo. I do think it's there. I think that, and I also think the other teams are closing. I think the pack is closing. The one thing that surprised me is I see the bookies haven't changed the overall odds in terms of All Ireland, so they still have the Limerick is short enough price favourites. But let's see what happens. Like the league is probably turning out the way we kind of forecast, Dalo, is it?
Yeah, I think it's getting better every week, though, I think. You know, there'll be less controversy about frees now this weekend, and maybe refs getting into their rhythm as well. Waterford, Tig is out for the year, Mark. Tig de Burka. Billy Nolan seems to be doing a fine job in goal, going by yesterday, in fairness to him. But Ozzy back to number 6 yesterday. Statement again from Cahill, and I thought he did a great game there, and I have to say. Yeah. And all around him played well. Anthony Daly played very well, and what you call
Calum
it? Sorry, Calum. Jeez, storming game, going up and down the field.
Well, the first thing I'd say to you, 1990, I was a minor, right? It's a long time ago, and Dennis Collin was in charge of the team, and we drew Waterford in the first round of the minor championship. And his first training session, he said, "Lads, you're going down to play Waterford in the minor first round, and it's a graveyard for Cork teams." And I said to you this before the match started yesterday, that Welsh Park is a graveyard, right, for Cork teams, and all teams, in my opinion. Whatever it is about Welsh Park, Waterford play 6 or 7 points a better team down in Welsh Park. And imagine if you had the crowd there yesterday, they would have been in and top of. So what you saw at the end of the game and the bit of a schmozzle that was there, that was no surprise, because it's a very, very tight pitch, but Waterford play excellent there. Now, I suppose coming back to the overall situation about Ozzy playing centre-back, I mean, what an adaptable player that you have, and it shows the class of the player that he can spend the season up front last year and be outstanding there. Had started the league there as well this year and was very good, got 5 points the last day out. Shane McGrath said he was the best man in the pitch with the last time he saw him. And then to go back centre-back and play extremely well. And you just can't get over his physical presence and his hurling ability left and right. And I think he gives that Waterford team in particular a huge platform, because he's 2 excellent wing backs. The Calum Lyons was outstanding. He was the find of the season last year. And the young lad of the Dalys, now, just to diverge a little bit, he could be in a spot of bother after what we saw on television last night, a little bit like Diarmuid Burns. We mentioned this about, we said the CCC taking up issues that referees haven't dealt with. And Diarmuid Burns got a 1-match suspension yesterday. And it wouldn't surprise me now if Earl Daly comes under the watch of the CCC or of the little kick that he gave to, I think it was Kyle Hayes, he might have given it to. So, but like in terms of Austin Gleeson,
he got a yellow. He did. He got a yellow.
He's dealt with so.
And Kyle got a yellow. No, I'd
did
say
he
Kyle
get a second yellow, Ken?
Yeah, Kyle was 2 yellows. Yeah.
Okay. Because that wasn't clarified anywhere now. I couldn't see whether he got a second yellow in it, so that's okay. So he'll be back. He'll be back the next.
Neither would like to see that incident brought up again, I'd say. I think 2 yellows in the situation was the fairest thing to do. But Daly is lucky. He got a yellow, because I think if he didn't get a sanction, he'd be in a bit of bother.
I think he'd probably get a 1-match suspension. But it was a big call by Liam Cahill. But I think in the particular game that it is, and I agree with you, I think Limerick is everybody's target right now. They're the Munster and All-Ireland champions, league champions. Any team, they're saying, look, do you know what? If we want to test our team, let's test them again. And that's out of total respect for this current Limerick team. But I have no doubt come around the champion. There's two big things for me now. The Cork League game is the next one up for Limerick. So what are Cork and Limerick going to do for that game is the first thing. Because they're going to be both playing championship against each other 3 weeks afterwards. So that is a big, big question the management teams have got to get right. Limerick don't need to win the league. Probably Cork do need to win the league, or certainly get to the latter stages. And they're still finding out about some of the lads. And as I've already mentioned, injury is going to play a big part, I think, in Cork's makeup, and particularly the likes of Owen Cadigan. He needs more game time, but he suffers from a lot of injuries. Seamus Hanley suffers a lot of injuries as well. So there's going to be a bit of shadowboxing still there to come, I'd say, but there's going to be a couple of real tasty, interesting matches to come.
Yeah. And with Shane Bennett coming back, with Kieran Bennett being flexible as to playing wing back, wing forward, very effective wing forward, with Jack Prendergast, with Desi Hutchinson, they probably have enough up there on balance to leave Ozzy centre back and play him centre back. He'll score for you at centre back as well, won't he?
Well, that's the thing about it. Ozzy is a natural centre back. I saw him there as a minor at centre back, as a 21 at centre back. He had a huge game against Tipp in a 21 final, and he's an outstanding player, reading the game, reading the ball, free taker, line ball expert, you name it. I think what you mentioned in your last word there was he could score from centre back as well, and I think this Waterford team are a little bit different to the Waterford teams of the past, in the fact that they're playing a lot smarter. I mean, Stephen Bennett went back to take the free, and he just slapped it across to Gleeson, straight in front of the goals, but yet 100 yards out and over the bar. So if you lose your best player, Tygo de Burka, without doubt, was Waterford's best player last year. If you lose the best player, you have to replace him with something of like. And Austin Gleeson fits that bill in a huge way. I think he's going to be just as effective at centre back as a centre forward. He's a marked man at centre forward, as you well know. He takes a bit of punishment. He played at full, he played at centre. It took a long time for Liam to get the best out of him. He was replaced in matches. Obviously, at centre back, you're going to be a 70-minute player unless you're unfortunate enough to get injured or something like that. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think Gleeson has got to go at centre back. I think it solidifies the whole back line. He's a presence there, huge figure, and the amount of ball he can distribute, and eventually, of course, from place balls and play, he can score. I think if he can, obviously, Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens will be working on him to discipline himself to play at that level, to play in the hole, which Declan Hannon and these great centre backs all do very well.
Prunty was outstanding at full back as well, TJ, wasn't he?
He was very good, but just to harp on Ken's point, Ozzy has that vision in his locker, right? So the 70, 80-yard passes where he flicks him literally left and right, that is there. When you give him time in the ball, in that quarterback role, he could be very, very dangerous. Two things for me there, right, Mark? I told you before about those good hurlers like Paddy Maher going back full back and Ozzy going back centre back. Good hurlers can play anywhere, Mark. Don't ever worry about that. Right, Dalo, one for you, Dalo. In your prime, right? In your prime at wing back, right? What would you do with someone like Jack Fagan coming in there and wing forward?
Jesus, I was just going to say it. 'Twas some leap over Kyle's head to fetch, and then a finish down top of it, Jesus, he's a monster, isn't he? I'd have said he'd be better off looking for someone like Mick Lyons to jump with him.
Even the one in the first half, he caught a Super Bowl, didn't he?
But they have some bodies for the crash zone now, lads. Everyone talks about that middle eight. The aggression that hurled with yesterday, likes of Kieran Bennett, Jack Fagan coming out into that, and Barron was as aggressive yesterday as I've seen him, really up for it. And with Ozzy then going into the middle of that last line of three. Jesus, they have some men, because Lyons is bombing up the field. Dara Lyons is a Duracell bunny. Iarla Daly is not shy in any way. They have some men now for that crash zone. Like
Liam Cannon's strength is getting the best out of his players. And he will test your mettle. He will test you and say, have you got it in you? Have you got it in the tank? And he did that with Austin Gleeson last year. Now, the big worry, of course, with Austin is that he actually has too good a strike. Tyke de Burker comes out and he strikes it left, he strikes it right. Brilliant ball for the Bennett's and co up front. Whereas Ozzy sometimes will go for this big bomber that will go 10 yards wide or go over the bar for a monstrous point. But the key thing with Cahill is to spancel that in the right direction, that he gets the best out of him. And Liam's strength is getting the best out of all those players, including the Jack Fagans who came down from Meath. And of course, when you come into a different county, you're always questioned, but he has made his mark in a big way. So I think they have strength all over, but their energy, Jamie Barron and co, driving forward in numbers, they can get back, they can go forward. They're going to have a huge say, in my opinion, in the championship.
Yeah, and there was goals under mine too, Dalo, which you'd like to see in a team. Under like early doors, they created a couple of half goal chances, and there in the second half, maybe people would have been cursing Stephen Bennett. I know I kind of hit the upright, but they were 2 points down, and he kind of half win for the goal, and he hit the bar or hit the upright and came back. And Limerick went back up. Yeah, Darrell Donovan. But I'm just saying it was there. Like that's again the confidence that's there in the forwards, and yeah, they have a lot of players, no doubt. And as I said, when it comes down to it, there'll be a fair first 15 there too.
Yeah, you'd be saying early on in the game like that Nicky Quaid was nearly Limerick's best player in terms of coming off his line, handling. You know, he was very prominent. That's a good sign of where, as you said, the Waterford were looking for the green flags.
They were. I said, in the breeze, like from the TV, the breeze seemed exceptionally strong, and like running in the first half, the energy was there. Yeah, Nicky got frustrated once or twice too with maybe was it the lack of movement in the Limerick forward line, or was it the kind of way that Waterford covered its space? So as I said, it's a part of everything. Maybe Limerick not being at the pitch, and then other teams just getting a little bit smarter. So a bit of everything.
As Mark mentioned, with all due respect, the confines of Walsh Park, and I've played goalkeeper down there. There's not too much to look out at. It's just totally blotted out with players all over the place. Whereas when you go into the stadium or Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Gaelic grounds, you have a lot more green grass to look at, where Nicky would find that space. It isn't as easy below in Walsh Park.
Yeah. Actually, on that, Ken, right, yesterday, I watched a bit of the football match. Believe it or not, I watched a small bit of the football match there. The camera showed the kick out 3 or 4 times, right, where you could get a good view of the options that were available for the keeper, right? But they don't tend to do it in the hurling at all.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Behind the keeper.
Yeah, well, you could definitely see it there a couple of times when the footballers were kicking the ball out. You could see the movement and you could see clearly what was ahead of him. But I didn't get to see it. Would say anytime behind any keeper in the hurling, you can see what he's kind of looking at. Okay,
we'll get all that sorted for the championship for you. I was doing co-commentary last week, and I was trying to fill you in on where fellas were. But I tell you, I was just confused sitting in the ground watching it with your Kenny beside me as you were at home, because no one was staying where they were meant to stay. It's very hard to describe it.
But come here, we must compliment TG Cahir and the way they can replay some of the incidents while the live match is going on. So they have extra cameras that are there. What was your view on the sending off of Shamie Flanagan, Dale? I'm sorry if I've taken a question from you there.
No. You're right about the little replays that are in the in screen. Yeah. Sometimes they show them and the action is just getting exciting, and you're saying, "Get that joke off." I know. But anyway, the Shamie thing. Like, look at the only angle we got on it was that low down sideline one, really, wasn't it? With them in the distance, it looked as if they flicked each other, and then he flicked up. That's where you could say, and Conor Gleeson went down then. And I suppose Paul O'Dwyer had no clue what went on. Only went down into his umpire, and the umpire obviously said that he struck, so he was straight off.
Yeah, but I guess there was two of them. There was and we were always, happing on about the linesmen and the umpires, and we got to compliment the guys now, because the young fella from Galway was sent off as well for the incident with Cahill Barrett as well, off the ball as well. So there's been a lot of these incidents that are actually happening off of the ball, and we're always, I want to say, we don't really criticize people or the officials only when they deserve it, but the umpires are becoming way more active, lads. And I mean, from a player's perspective, they're going to be like, anytime you raise a hurley to a player, you're in trouble whatever way. If you give a fella a belt of a shoulder or an elbow or something like that, you more often not you. But the minute you raise a hurley or give a fella a poke, you're in some trouble. Like, I mean, I don't understand what players are at, like, you know.
The only thing I say, Mac, is the level of holding, and it's happening in all teams, right? You're looking for the forwards to be moving. You're going to get that bit of coming together, and it's going to happen. I suppose I could go back to my own days as a fullback. If like something like that happened to me, you know, I'd be kind of saying to the ref, "He's all right, give me yellow, leave him there. I look after
it." You were as bad as wing forward. I know some people. I know reading social media last night, or maybe we should leave it off tonight before we coming on this, because there's all sorts of ideas on it. It's just blatant back your own and argue, and there were suggestions that fellas were going down very heavy from flicks and that kind of thing. But I suppose if you stay on your bloody feet, you're not going to get a free even, all right? I don't know. In that situation, if Conor Gleeson stood, the umpire would have said nothing happened, really, I suppose. I don't know.
Correct, absolutely. But the interesting thing is that the Cahill Barrett incident with the Galway player is that it looked like the Cahill was after doing a bit of the schmazzling and the man got the red card. So there was obviously something happened before that, you know, but no. Cahill comes under the radar a bit too often anyway. So, but like in this situation anyway, Ken, he certainly didn't go into the referee's notebook.
Yeah. Dalo, can I just give a shout out to Mackie Quinlan there? Good to see you guys playing, man.
Hold very solid.
Hold very solid, yeah. Great. That was his debut yesterday at wing back for Limerick. So Mackie would be Galway country, obviously, kind of more football land, same place as where John Kiley came from. So it's great that we have a presence back there. And at home, Mackie's father had a bit of an accident in the farm there recently. He got trapped underneath a tree and he's recovering well at home. So I'll give a shout out to Mackie's father, Tom, there, who's doing well. He's chairman of the club in Galway. But I thought Mackie had a solid game. It's great that he's there. He hasn't hurled much underage for Limerick because he would have been more involved in the football academies, but certainly one to look out for in the future. So good start for him yesterday.
Yeah, very athletic, very, very strong. You could see that S&C has been done, you know. Yeah, he was calm on the ball as well, though. That's what I liked. He was calm. There was a presence about him, you know, for a fella making his debut. Look, I'm bubbling up savage. I bought the Dublin Antrim game Saturday afternoon. Like the look of Dublin, I have to say, was Parnell, and of course they're good there, and I felt as well now from an Antrim point of view, when I see Darren's interviews afterwards, probably the third week in a row going to the well, like great win against Clare, probably seized on a chance that presented itself. Then went down to Kilkenny and scored 3-16, and fought right to the bitter end. And I just thought they looked a bit flat-footed. But from a Dublin point of view, like I thought Owen O'Donnell gave an exhibition again at full-back. He marked up big Donald Lugent there from the city. You know, he just couldn't win a ball with him taken off at half time. And Rush at 6 for me was nearly back to his form of 6 or 7 years ago. He really looked mobile, and they really a bit like Tipp, I mentioned earlier. There seems to be a settled backline now developing, where you know you're going to have O'Donnell and Rush. You're probably going to have Keane O'Callaghan, Sean Moore, Dara Gray as the other wing back, and a fight for the other corner probably between Paddy Smith and James Madden. And that's a nice place for Matty Kenny to be in, facing into the championship. I know one or two issues up front, but nice to have your six backs and maybe your midfield fairly solid in your head.
Yeah, he's a real hurling man, Matty, as you know. Like he's a Galway man, and he's been through it himself and played a long time himself. And you can see where he's coming from with his success in Coola. He's now beginning to say to himself, I've got to put a team here together that, you know, this is no non-forgiven territory now for Matty at this stage, because he knows now, you know, all the honeymoon periods have been exhausted. He needs to make a mark this year. Something like what Mark mentioned about Walsh Park, you know, you were there yourself. Parnell is a bit of a fortress for Dublin. They're very good in Parnell Park. I'd be a big fan of Rush at centre back. Obviously, Owen O'Donnell has proved himself. The half back then has got to be the hallmark of their team. Chris Comey is, you know, obviously, you know, sacrificing himself for the team by playing at, you know, up front at 11 and at 12. The key thing is the finishing power. The finishing power to have from 13 to 15, particularly. Paul Ryan, you know, I'm sure you're often fit to kill him, but Paul Ryan contributed hugely to Dublin in the scoring stakes. He was an opportunist. He knew where the net was. He knew how to score a goal. And from that perspective, Trollier, was always a goal getter. It hasn't been happening for him up to now. Eventually, like young Roland Hayes, I saw him playing with UCD. He's a good player. He's a good, strong player. He's getting more confident all the time. He's a bit of power about him. I suppose yourself, Dalo, we'd have to ask, have the strength and depth to get there?
Yeah, I would have said maybe tidy enough up front, Ken, but a few bits, as you said, like if Trollier could click into form, and he got about 3 goal chances, like, and didn't get any of them really, like, and he could click in. Ronan Hayes looked sharp all through now. I would say he just needs to be a bit more consistent. There is that Davy Keogh on the corner, like speed, like geez, incredible speed. Yeah, there could be like a dangerous game. I presume they'd be able to take Antrim again in the championship, but you couldn't take that for granted now with Antrim.
Is that Croker, lads?
I think all the Leinster games are going to be Croker again, Ken. So yeah, like you'd imagine they'd be able to open them up there, but like I wouldn't say it for sure. But if they do get over it, could be a dangerous enough game for Galway. Galway coming in that big cold. Now nobody's going to come in that big cold this year because of the proximity to the league games. So we obviously you wouldn't fancy them to beat Galway from where we're looking at now with the way Galway are going. But they've settled well. They're probably very close to beating Kilkenny the first day. Conceded the goal. If they got the goal, they could be top of that group now. But they've come back with 2 good wins, and it'd be an interesting one with Clare and themselves the next day. Obviously, Antrim and Laois will be a huge game.
Yeah, Rush is a huge plus. Rush is a huge plus.
Very strong now, very strong, like and mobile looking and speedy. That's what I thought now. Whenever he's really trimmed down, Rushy sometimes he could do the gym too much, and he's kind of cutting himself, but he really looks. There's all speed work I'd say they've been working on, and what he has been working on during the lockdown.
Stats are impressive. Yeah, the stats are impressive enough too. Like 21 points in play. And then the last day against Laois, 15 points in play. Like so, there's a lot of things going in their favour. And those couple of wins, like that make training that bit easier, and that bit buzzier, and you need fellas to be mad to get on the team now and stuff like. So yeah, I would say plenty positives. I said Matty will be happy where he has him right now.
Yeah, especially with Clare going to Parnell now the next day. Like that's 2-week break now, and then that's a real target for both teams, isn't it? Like whoever wins that one will be kind of buzzing a bit. Clare will have Kilkenny coming to end us for the last one. But then he wouldn't want to be going up and being flat now in Parnell, because Dublin win that, they're buzzing, and it's kind of a big game in the context of the group and the season for both teams. Clare obviously desperately needed a win, lads, and in fairness, Tony Kelly got a bad old dead leg against Wexford. Now it was a sore one. You could see when Rory O'Connor came in to tackle him, and the knee hit the thigh, like, and we could nearly all feel it when we were watching it, So he wasn't going to be back, I figured. But it was a good win. We just needed a win. You could sense the bit of pressure. Normally, lads, you'd be going up playing Laois, you honestly wouldn't feel under pressure, but you'd be wary with Cheddar and everything. No complacency here, we'd be caught. But there was real pressure around the county to get a result.
I paid the $5 there.
Yeah.
I was going to say I paid the $5 to watch Clare and Wexford, and you were on co-commentary. And in fairness, you did the best you could for me, no doubt.
Yeah.
I thought like that was an amazing result. Like I watched the full game, right? And like for 50 odd minutes, Clare, like you would have said it was near the perfect performance. They looked like they were going to go on and win the game. Like how much of a bearing did the sending off versus Clare not finishing strong? What was there maybe a connection between the two? I don't know, but it was just like at 55 minutes, it was impossible to see Wexford winning that game.
Yeah, it was. And I just thought some of the... I think if you look at it this way, well, what we were missing, right? Straight away, you were forced into replace Reedy, or replace O'Donnell, Kelly going off early, right? So you 3 of them had to... No, right, then you look at it. Ian Galvin has had a horrid year last year with injuries. Just couldn't get the body right. Anything. Made no contribution at all, and he pulled out of the panel for finish. He's back, but he had very little game time now. He played really well though for 55 minutes, but he was gassed. Paddy Fitzpatrick, Paddy's not a young lad, but Paddy was doing a great man market job around the middle of the field. Just ran out of gas as well, I think, and I think we just were flagging. We had the 2 young lads up front, young Meehan and Rogers. Wexford started to get the work, the running game overlapping, going. Shannon had been brilliant, TJ, up to, and he just, I suppose, we couldn't get up the ball to him. We couldn't get the support. And I thought to myself, if Wexford get a goal here, we're in huge trouble. And sure, not alone did they get one, but they got two. But still obviously Clare had it back to level.
Yeah.
3 minutes into injury time. Silly, poor old Ryan Taylor, I won't blame him, but it was a corner forwards tackle over the corner, and I suppose Rory did the business. And Rory O'Connor, to me, was Wexford's standout man, wasn't he, in terms of running with the ball? And if you got it to him, he was crucial. But look, John Conlon, they seem to be persistent with John Conlon anyway, even though huge talk about it around here. That's 3 games now, so it'll be really interesting. I think if you see John Conlon wearing 6 against Dublin, we're sticking with it, bar something drastically goes wrong. And
have you an alternative 6, Anthony? Have you an alternative 6?
Well, David McInerney will be back, I think, now. Kind of had a bad thigh strain, nearly fit for yesterday, but wasn't risked. So Davy Mack will be back. So what? But I see maybe him going maybe wing or corner even, you know. I think they're settling on Cleary at 3. Rory Hayes is a definite, hurling really well. Dermot Ryan, brilliant. Now he's been our man of the league, like Dermot Ryan. And if they settle on Conlon, then you have Davy Mack coming in. You know, Colin Malone could go back wing back. Ed McCarthy could go back wing back.
Colin Galvin.
Clare's now the man that could change things a bit for Clare. Got 15 minutes into the body yesterday, and seemingly he needs to build it up that way, like that he will play again now in 2 weeks' time, hopefully a half a game. And like it's a long injury that he had never quite got right from. But if we get him right, Jesus, he'd be some addition, you know, going face into Waterford anyway. And we talked about Waterford's middle 8. Like Galvin is a crash barrier man in there with Kelly, you know, with that kind of Colin Malone type fellas. You need them in there to take on that Waterford middle 8 anyway. Certainly with the likes of Ozzy and Fagan and these fellas we spoke about. So look, it's just important to get the win, I think. And there's a bit of breathing space now for Brian and the lads. Obviously, lads, there's a fair bit about controversy, you know, and I kind of wrote about it today as well. Look, I just found it unbelievable, like that Wexford come up for a league game. TJ, you paid the $5 for it. I was there. They stayed in the Strand Hotel in Limerick night 4. Sensible venue for Ennis. We all know that. Easy trip in the morning. And like how 2 Clare lads got texts to say you're a close contact. Like one of those Clare lads, he was on the field the same time as one of those Waterford positive lads for 19 minutes. And that includes the water break, right? Because he was taken off and the Waterford lad, or the Wexford lad had come on. Apologies if I said Waterford. The Wexford lad had come on. And I think he went back through the video just to see where he could have been a close contact. And I think they had 1 tackle. And the Wexford sub was involved in about 3 tackles with 1 other Clare player. You know, this kind of thing. And this guy gets a text, like self-employed guy, you know, out working. The other lad's a student. Luckily, it wasn't this week's game. He'd be under pressure for his leaving cert. Maybe some arrangement might be happening. But, like, you know, for me, as Brian said, like, you could see the madness in Brian Lohan last night, like that he was very, very upset. And as he mentioned, like, surely guys out in a pitch, open air, there's been no cases shown from playing games. It's a casual contact out there.
Yeah, that's not a close contact. In all my research of that, it's definitely not a close contact. You're in open air, as you mentioned, 15 to 19 minutes. They come in contact in one instance for a split second. I don't know where that was going. Mentioning him as a close contact, I don't know what that was all about. But that has got to be cleared up because it smacked of something that I don't appreciate. And I can see where Brian Nolan's frustration totally was coming from there, that 2 of his players were ruled out because of that, you know. And in fairness to HSE, once it was mentioned as a close contact, they couldn't. No, they're in the system, then they have to do their job. That's it.
They have to do their job, yeah.
It's a difficult one to understand, Dalo. We need to get your head around it, how in all the scene, and like we've seen the picture of the team huddle and just the 2 Clare players were mentioned. It's a bonkers story. Like, I know there's 1 or 2 statements out there this morning, and the finger will continue to be pointed. Like, I don't. It just doesn't make any sense how it just happened to be 2 Clare players. No sense.
No. I just look, and how any 2 could be picked out of the Clare lads. You know, like why him and him? Like it doesn't add up at all. Like, and I think Wexford released a statement contradicting Brian Lohan's. They said that nobody from the Wexford group singled out anybody. But we had COVID here in this house last year, and we were close contacts. I was a close contact at the Miss Boat All Ireland semi-finals. and sit here at home watching them, and I gagging to be at them, and that's the system. And as I said, once you're in the system, there's no coming down from it. There's no the HSE have a job to do. I think it sets a dangerous precedent, lads, with our club games coming back. As I said, a couple of weeks' time, like where does this fit?
And you can imagine the local rivalries and club rivalries more intense than county, and fellas are a little bit more bitter, you know. And then I'll say I shagged that Dalo. He fucking gave me a slap the other day. Dalo, I was close contact with Dalo. You know, I mean that's not in the game. That's not sporting in any sense, you know.
Yeah, and then things are beginning to open up as well, Ken. Because I know that first round of the county leagues, the football thing's on that week. The hurling following week, I know in Galway, the first rounds are on that week. But I'm opening my pub here. We've a lot of work going on down there at the moment, getting ready to open outdoor on the 7th with a kind of a new covered area in Murty's. And like you are saying, like that's going to coincide with first round of the O'Gorman Cup, or the Cusack Cup, as they call it, the football leagues in Clare. And lads coming back to my place maybe to have a drink on the bank holiday Monday, outdoor, 1 metre apart with 6 can sit at a table. You're saying, where is this all going to go here? Like, for me, how there could be a close contact on the Clare side from, like, and I even asked the question of a couple of people, would those lads have been in college with those lads, and would they have stood in the corridor in Cusack Park, or the you know, the where you come out from the dressing rooms there, the open air, and would they have stood chatting, or even Larry suggested would there be a jersey swapped or something? But no figure out, no contact, no chats, nothing. Like, so for me, it was just incredible stuff. And
but how some of the Wexford players couldn't be nominated, Anthony, is a bit strange as well, because those lads were in a huddle together, as you mentioned today in the paper, and they've been training together as well during the week. So that makes no sense whatsoever. But I think there's a tweet out from John Fogarty there now that the Wexford chairman, Michael Martin, describes Brian Lohan's claims that Wexford players nominated Clare players as close contacts as outrageous, and he's calling for Brian Lohan to retract his statement.
But who nominated him then? Who nominated him?
Look, this is what we're trying to get to the bottom of, and I think the lads in the Sunday game kind of mentioned it last night, that Croke Park will have to, like, it's not Croke Park's responsibility on the COVID side, but it certainly is Croke Park's permit, I would say, to be talking to the Wexford County Board today, and to be talking to the Clare County Board and say, right lads, let's get to the bottom of this, and let's see, how did these 2 Clare players get nominated?
But Mark, that's a ridiculous statement it's a ridiculous statement from the chairman, though, because the 2 guys were positive by Tuesday. They're the guys then that have to nominate their close contacts, obviously. The 2 Clare lads are oblivious to all this. There's no notion that there's COVID in the Wexford camp whatsoever, right? And then Wexford subsequently have a 3rd case, so the Kilkenny game is called off, or they're seeking a postponement, which is unlikely. Maybe, I don't know, with the schedule.
Lohan's capture, the 2 Clare boys were nominated, right, as close contacts.
They just got texts from the HSE.
If the Wexford chairman is claiming that that was outrageous to say that the Wexford boys nominated him, well, if they didn't nominate him, who nominated him?
It just doesn't add up at all.
What I was going to say about COVID was, like, no fear that Davy and Lohan passed it to each other anyway, Dalo, so they wouldn't.
No, the social distancing was good there. No, like, you know, it's just, lads, the 2 players I feel for, like, you know, they had to go off and get tested.
No doubt.
Went straight to a testing centre, one of them, and one fellow, as soon as his bit of work or study allowed him to get a negative straight away, sure, but still 10 days, knock yourself away there. It's just, for me, it is unbelievable, uncanny, don't know, think Croke Park must give us definite guidelines on this going forward. Absolutely. Like, if, for instance, just say, for instance, there's 2 cases in the Clare camp this Tuesday. For instance, just totally hypothetical now, right? That there's no Laois player going to be fingered over a tackle in the game yesterday. That can't be the way forward. Club or county, I think that has to be, no way can that be. Unless it was unprecedented, that 2 of them had rolled around the ground fighting and they were in each other's faces or something, and you knew there was desperately close contact, and maybe there was even bodily fluids exchanged with spitting and roaring at each other or whatever. Maybe.
It get very nasty, Dalo, in the last round of the league when championship is coming 2 weeks later. Imagine.
Oh yeah, that's the big worry, TJ. That's where there would be all the
And that's
real damage.
That's why the precedent, lads, has to be culled straight away. This Wexford chairman coming out with this
immediately
to get Brian Owen to withdraw what he said. So how did the first the Clare boys got was one got a text to say he was a close contact and they'd be ringing him, and the other fella got a call. For God's sake, like, it had to come from Wexford. It had to come some shape or form from those two Wexford players. They said who their close contacts were, and for nobody else on the Wexford squad to be named, maybe it's no wonder they have a third case. So look, I leave it at that. I think the top guys have to sort this for club and county. Clubs are going back in 2 weeks' time. This has to be put to bed. You're a casual contact if you're out in the open air on a hurling field, running around, tackling, hitting ball, catching ball. You're a casual contact, no more than that. I think that has to be the way. That's my take anyway on it. Go on, Mark.
Dalo, Mark, did you feel that there was a little bit of relaxation of the advantage rule this weekend? I certainly did.
Yeah, I would agree with you. There certainly there wasn't any controversial situations erupted over the weekend. Whether that has got to do with the media and whether we'd say the Sunday game or the papers and stuff like that I think everybody, 99% of people are on the referee's side of the fence here, that they've been put in a very, very awkward position, that we had a great advantage rule, that everybody knew exactly how it worked. And then we had, a change to that rule that came in out of nowhere, and players, management and referees had to deal with it in a short period of time, which seems to be turning out that it isn't an advantage to go back and give the players a free.
Yeah, but I saw a change that, Ken. There was one score by Brian Concannon in the Tipperary game where the referee clearly had his hand up and he allowed him to take the shot, right? There was a late tackle, I think, yesterday in the Limerick game, was it maybe by Kyle Hayes' shoulder on Jamie Byrne, where he allowed the shot to be taken and the ball went wide and he came back. It was like as if it was a kind of a flick back to the old play, we'll say where we were last year, Dalo. I felt this weekend that they weren't just whistle happy.
The best example, I think, and it's a great thing it happened, and it was unfortunate for Kerry, but Dara Minahan's goal, I think that was the best example of the advantage rule not being used properly. 100th of a second later, he had it in the net. And I think that he's good. I mean, it was highlighted by O'Rourke last night on RT, Colin O'Rourke, and I think that is the best example of all. It was a brilliant goal, and he got pulled back. That's exactly what we're talking about, lads. It sums up the whole thing, encapsulates everything that we're discussing here, that the advantage rule must come back in the old format that you were mentioning, Mark.
Yeah, but I think the refs are starting to take back control, lads. Are they? Like, you're starting to say, we need this to flow. Like, and for a fella, Ken, that had a little sneaky €20 accumulator of Kerry to beat Dublin, Waterford to beat Limerick, the Down hurlers to win, and the Kildare hurlers to win. I'd like it if Dara Minahan got the benefit of the doubt. There's always one to catch up. But anyway, there's an interest. We did a sneaky bet on Phil Mickelson yesterday morning to make up for it, Mark. Sorry, no, I didn't want to break that to you last night.
Lads, by the way, I'm too long in contact with you now, so I have to go.
Okay. quickly before you go, Ken, I just wanted to ask this. And look, you are third from the bottom of the fantasy league, but I'll redden the other two anyway. Don't worry. Come here. Who's the happiest, Ken, with the break in the league after 3 rounds? Who's the happiest? Who's your gold medal in terms of I'm the manager? You've been a manager at that level. Who's the happiest outside of Mick Finlay?
I think, I think the way that the league has turned out, I think Liam Sheedy has to be very happy at the moment, the way things have turned out. But Liam Sheedy has been in that position before. I think the man that really has the bit between his teeth now would be Kieran Kingston, in my opinion. I think Cork have something to play for now. And they're the one team that everybody's looking to say, Jesus, they're the one team that can upset the apple cart in Limerick. Limerick, obviously, as TJ mentioned, have their team in mind. But from the perspective of what's going through, Liam Cahill must be hugely happy at the moment. Liam Sheedy's very happy. But I think Kieran Kingston will see this as a huge chance. It's his second coming, lads. He's a Munster semi-final against Limerick. He has absolutely nothing to lose. He's put a good panel together there that have had good performances and good wins. And I think I'm just watching out for Cork this year, lads.
Okay, Ken. Thanks a million for being with us. And we will keep an eye on Kieran Kingston, and we'll be keeping an eye on Tipp as well.
And don't nominate me. Don't mention my name as a contact, please.
No, you have to be on for about an hour and 3/4, Ken. Thanks, Ken. He's gone. Who would you be happy? Who would you think would be like? I think I'd be, Kieran Kingston. I think I'd be more happy if I was Liam Sheedy. Maybe I just think from where they started the year that I'd nearly have Sheedy or Shane O'Neill as the two. I thought Galway experimented so much on Saturday. I expected Tipp to win, but I just think Tipp are beginning to settle 1 to 9, and we know the options up front. You went through them there, Mark, and we were wondering Michael Breen, where does he slot? And we even Brendan Maher, where does he slot? You know, so for me, they'd be the two I'd have slightly ahead of Kingston, because that's a false match yesterday. Do you know, yesterday's one is a false one, like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the managers that are happy, actually. I think a lot of the managers have got something out of the league already, and it's only 3 matches in. Even Shane O'Brien for Westmeath will be delighted with the performance of the team down in Waterford, having got a fair trimming against Galway the first day. So there's bits and pieces for everybody out there. I'd say John Kiley then, on the other hand, might be... Look, there's a couple of things after happening. He's had a lot of red cards, okay? His team have been subjected to what he feels maybe the referees are on him a little bit. He then came out and made an outburst, and then he retracted it a couple of days later. So I'd say there's a lot happening in Limerick that you wouldn't have seen or wouldn't have forecasted a month ago. But I think all the other managers, they'll all be very happy. And I don't know whether you put one of them above the other. I mean, Cork are unbeaten and Tipp are unbeaten. Cork are playing a new brand of hurling, in my opinion, a really possession game. And they've unearthed a couple of forwards as well. But there's no point in unearthing forwards unless you give them the ball on a regular basis. And I'm just coming back to the game against Tipp. And late in the game, a very, very experienced player in Owen Cadigan had a look up at the goals. And if that was with Douglas, he'd have had a cut and he hit the ball over the bar. We were 2 points up at the time. And there was obviously something went off, and he said to say, you're not to hit the ball in unless there's a clear and obvious player in a right position. But it was a point scoring opportunity. And he turned around to give a ball to somebody, and there was no one there, and he overcarried the ball. And I just felt that there's definitely a change in the outlook, but as I'm saying, and if you have good forwards, you need to give them the ball on a regular basis. And you know, can they bet in this game plan, Anthony? And this was the game plan that Donald O'Grady put in probably in 2003, 2004, when you had the likes of Tom Kenny and Johnny O'Connor, and that was a hybrid of Bernie O'Connor's running game from Newtown Shandon. That's the bottom line. That is what it was. It wasn't the Donald O'Grady game plan. He just adjusted it from what Bernie O'Connor had put in place. But I think Cian will be delighted that there's wins, and the big word is consistency of performance. So I think at the halfway junction, I think there's a lot of managers very, very happy. But the next 2 league games for Cork are if Cork go for them, we'll know more. I think they'll know in 3 weeks' time as to where exactly Cork are.
8-1 to win the All-Ireland market. Would you be a player?
I'm going to play.
We take that as a no.
I don't know. It's too early days. No, it's early days. It's too early
Dalo,
days. You know?
Dalo, how much of what we're looking at is phony? Like is this stuff here? Does teams not really showing their hands? We're going to see different type of stuff, so different intensity from championship. I think that, let's say a team can go away now and put in their 2 or 3 weeks tough work now and then take our 2 weeks out come championship. I don't think we're going to learn a lot in the last 2 league games. And like, it's unusual, as Mark said there, to have maybe 4 or 5 managers in a happy place. It's unusual, like.
Yeah, and I go back to decades again, TJ, and I was mentioning about, you know, Limerick's position and where we were coming from, 98. And like, I think there's a certain element that John Kiley has a trust of who will deliver for him on the big day, right? And others, Cork, I suppose, especially, are like, and they have to go through a process of establishing where they're at, and they are making progress. There's no doubt about that. And the emphasis on going for goals, I'm loving to see, like. But
14 goals in 3 games.
Yeah, but when I go back, Mark, you know, you give us a good beating in the league semi-final in 98.
98,
Didn't bother us
I know.
one iota. You know, it just didn't, as a group, it just didn't bother us at all. Like, we just said, we'll have these fellas again in 8 weeks, and we're going to be ready. Like, and we were very much ready. Like, and then we were ready again. We won Munster, and I suppose, look, things went against us. The draw against Waterford probably was the biggest mistake we made, I suppose, in the catching of us over in the end of the year. We know, look, sure, what happened to poor Jimmy Cooney was misfortune. But look,
yes.
At the same time, I just think, look, Nan knew he had a fair idea of his 13 or 14 and where they'd play and what subs would make an impact. And I think Kylie has that luxury still. And that's why I think TJ, you don't see much of a change in the odds.
And I think Kylie was professing that message last night. Dalo was that we'll be ready, don't worry. And I just heard in the golf last night an old statement from Greg Norman kind of saying that true happiness is a long walk with the putter. I'm not sure if any of the managers have the putter in their hand just yet now.
Is it a pink putter he has, I wonder, right?
Yeah, my bake for this week, right? I'm looking to bring the role of the Mayor Forna back. I think the game misses it. I think that it's not fair. I was just watching yesterday the likes of like Paul Kinnerk and Michael Beavens and them. Like, they do all the training on the ground. They're heavily involved in the game plan, and they confining those guys to the stands. Even going back in time where we had, let's say, the likes of The Rock, or let's say Dan Shanahan now being another high-profile one. Yeah. Like, I think we're taken from the game. I think it's a wrong move. I don't agree with it. So today, my call, Dalo, is: can you organise? Get the More Forna back?
Well, I think you have to say straight out. Fergal Hogan told us he doesn't want them on the field.
I know.
Talking to him and saying that's, and you told us your way of doing it as well. Above in Galway was like, if the free count was 8-2 against you, you'd go out and you'd say, "Jesus, like, Johnny, are we that dirty? Like, is there something I can work on here at the water break?" Like, so I mean, I'd say fellas like Barry Cullinan will miss you above in Galway, all right? Like, I think the refs are calling this. Like, I agree. I think they add to the colour hugely. Like, and you mentioned Dan Shanahan, brilliant, right?
Yeah. But in Aussie rules, in the Aussie rules, right? The runner is a fella he's an orange tracksuit, tops and bottoms. So you can see him coming from a mile away, right? And what was happening with the Mayor Fun was that they were sneaking in, right? Okay, and they were upsetting puck-out strategies. But if you had a fella top to bottom in orange, you would see him you could just imagine the crowd stirring up. Oh, Jesus, Sully's going to make a bust onto the field, or Big Dan Shanahan is going to do it. Be some crowd.
There's teams finding a way around it, Dilo. It's wrong to see Tommy Dunn on the sideline carrying hurleys.
Doing hurleys, yeah.
Yeah, it's wrong. Like, even like Tommy again doing the coaching with the Tipperary team. Like, I just think that anybody, like, say, whether it's a coach or a selector, learning stuff, like, you're watching these guys' movements on the day, it definitely adds to the event. Like, okay, you might pinpoint there's one Greg Kennedy event or whatever. I can't think of anything else where the Mayor Forna was having a problem or an issue with a referee or whatever.
It's a football problem. I think it's a football problem. There was a lot of hassle with football.
You're consistent with the football message anyway. Ruined our game.
The football fellas were causing all the trouble. And there might need to be a second set of rules for the footballers or for the hurlers. But the Mayor Forna and hurling had no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, we I think, well, maybe there was a bit of crack with Tommy Dunn and Saoirse Bulfin, was there, TJ, in the semi-final?
But there might have been, but either way, all I'm saying is,
I loved it.
You'd have to love it. I think part of the match, like, you'd always like to sit in the stand where you're kind of behind the management teams, watching the body language and watching the carry on. Like, I just think that having the guys that are really influential in implementing these game plans, right, really kind of on the pitch with the players, night in, night out, and then on the big day then they're banished to the stands. To me, it's a wrong call. I don't agree with it, and I'd love the GEA to relook at it.
Yeah, any change in the 4 quarters, lads? Dalo, I know you're kind of empty the 4 quarters here.
Yeah, I'd maybe even bring back the Mayor Forna, let him carry a bottle of water and get rid of the bloody water breaks. I don't know. I think even Tipp had a tactics board the other night.
He did.
Yeah. So look, everything is kind of predicated by who's winning, like, and if Paul Kinnerk's tactics board now will go to everywhere, like, that's the next thing now. We're reminding them of where they're supposed to stand and move over a little bit, So look, lads, great coverage, great to have Ken The fantasy hurling is getting a bit scoutways there. There's great scores coming in on the listeners board, but on the Super League, obviously between ourselves and Ken has gone there now. Like, obviously, lads, look, I don't want to be talking about this. I wish Gary would come in there.
Myself and Mark are happy to talk about it as well.
Yeah, well, funny enough, if you add up the 2 year scores, you don't make my score. That'd be right.
We're ahead of you, but we're not. We wouldn't be leading the whole overall. But
that's all right. Yeah, that's great. It's a great weekend for Clarecastle, lads. We've been in the doldrums for a while, and things are beginning to happen with our club again. So, I'm delighted for the Magpies, first of all, to be back up there on top. And I'd say Wexford and Kilkenny is not going to be replayed. So, I don't know. It's a huge loss to me. I heard someone whinging in the background from the Temple-Derry Kenyans that his captain, Alan Murphy, was gone. But, I D. O'Keefe and Killian Buckley, both playing midfield. So, it was a huge loss to me as well. But it looks at this stage, I suppose it could be a late burst. There'll be a lot of thought now put into the transfer policy for 2 weeks' time. I tell you.
I think the word is flowing here, Dalo. I think myself and Mark, we had a chat. We're just focusing on the championship now.
Exactly.
He's still about 140. He's still about 140 behind you, TJ.
I know.
He's isolated. It's like one of the years maybe that someone who in the Premier League, Sunderland, would have a nightmare.
Yeah. I left TJ Reid in, so I was kind of hoping that game would get played, and I had Alan Murphy as well. So I just had a disaster weekend. Aidan McCarthy killing me. I have Aaron Shanahan there, right? And a bit like last year, I had Shane O'Donnell, right? And Clare were shooting the lights out, and Shane wasn't getting the scores. Yesterday, Clare scored 227, and Shanahan, was he calling back or what?
Do you know, he handled a load of the ball, TJ, and he was brilliant against Wexford, but he scored very little as well that day, and he was absolutely brilliant that day,
I'm sure he was pulled down, he was straight through on goals. I should get points for that, really.
I've been saying this to Cahill, he's going to have to allow for assists.
Cahill, come on, man. I'm surely entitled to some few scores for a man being he was the man of the match against Wexford.
We won't get results out about Wednesday. Look, the leaders are our listeners, unbelievable. Michael Cafferty, Ackle, Mayo, top of the league. Fair battle with Kieran Kenrick from Mile Rovers, 6-7-9 and 6-7-1. Wow, lads. Brian Smithy, your buddy, is still there.
Castlemartin over the road.
Yeah, it's great.
So great.
6-7-9. It must be up near the top of the overall. So we're delighted with that as well, lads. And
so that's the message, Dalo. If myself and Lander score was added together, we still wouldn't be in the first three.
Oh my God. Just as well as the league.
Yeah, I know. We're championship boys. Dalo's gone. He just jumped ship, isn't he?
Yeah. I said he's gone getting the first prize there.
Yeah. Marky, what's the vibe in Cork? Must be definitely positive, is it? Round the place?
That's positive. I mean, the goals are the big thing. To get 14 goals over 3 games, as you meant in the paper said today, if you added up the 2017-18 league together, they still wouldn't have had more than 14 goals. So that's very positive. But Connolly is a real player. He's a real good talent now. And Shane Kennefick, Christy Ring's grandson, came on over the weekend as well. And you know what this is coming back to now is the actual club championship, TJ. We had a prolonged run in the club championship last year, and it has worked out very well that a lot of the players are coming through. So Shane Barrett in particular, Connolly in particular, and Kennefick, they were all excellent for the clubs last year, and they all got to finals. And their name is out there. James O'Flynn is a player that I would have mentioned last year in the pod as well. He had a good run in the championship, and he came on as a sub yesterday. So I think the club championship is a big bearing on the panel as well. But it's lads performing now is the big thing, and consistency of performance is what they're looking for. But very, very happy with where things are at this moment in time.
All Cork there, Dalo, since you left and came back to us. Just can you hear us there, Dalo?
No, he's still disconnected, I'd say.
Yeah.
Any major concerns in Limerick, TJ? 2 losses in a row.
You wouldn't like to be getting 3 games in and 1 draw and 2 defeats. Doesn't obviously read well, but no, I wouldn't have any major concerns. The scores and play, a little minor concern for me. You'd like that. I just don't. I was trying to kind of think about last night what way the approach will be for the next game. I'm sure Limerick definitely won't want to lose 3 in a row. Cork are definitely one of the foreign teams at the moment, so that'll be interesting. but both managers will be both very firmly eyes fixed on. I think it's 4 weeks later. So trying to understand each other's system. That would be probably the key. But look, that's all in good time. Mark, it looks like Dalo has abandoned us, so we'll have to probably leave it there. We'll be back whenever Dalo decides to come back to us.
Fortnight time again, I suppose. Yeah,
fortnight time again, and I think he's getting that pub ready down there as well for all the listeners and whatever to call when everything's safe and wise to do so, just so everybody can call and see him. And I suppose just finally I'll wrap it up and say thanks to Allianz, our sponsors, and hope you enjoyed the old listen, and we're onwards and upwards. A break next week, so see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, very good.
Allianz, supporting all 32 counties through the Allianz Leagues.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer